So God, you need to see him work firsthand, but evolution, you don't need to see work firsthand.
Yes, because when you're saying that you have a God that's all knowing, all powerful, and is everywhere at once, I'm going to need a lot more evidence for that over beings evolving.
You're
I
going to need
would
more
need way
evidence than
more
that, than
evidence.
somebody telling you that life came from non-life.
Yes,
But
because
that's a miraculous event in itself. How does life come from non-life? Have you ever seen a life come from a stone?
no, that's the thing. That's why I would need evidence to believe that.
Right, but that's what
I think
evolution
there's
claims.
Well, I'm an atheist. For me, like, I have nothing against religion. It's just that I don't have enough evidence. I'm just here for one specific question, which is like free will. It just doesn't add up for me. What's your stance on it?
I believe in free will.
Okay. For me, I just don't think that it could exist with an all-knowing God. I'm not saying that even though He knows our choices, it would go against our free will. I'm just saying
No, knowledge is
with
not
the evidence.
causation.
Yeah, I know that. So I'm not gonna
Hmm.
that it would be dumb for me to go against that. So, um, but the thing that stands out to me is in the Bible when God hardens the Pharaoh's heart, which is like interfering with him. That that's one instance where
He's
it
not.
just
So
doesn't
that's
add
not.
up.
He's not interfering with him because if you read the whole interaction, Pharaoh hardens his own heart several times, and it's only like
Yeah,
towards the end, for the last little bit after Pharaoh already even committed to destruction, that he hardened his heart. And it's not taking away his free will; it's just committing him to his decision that he already made. So it'd be like things like fear is not going to stop him.
but that's the thing. The first time the Pharaoh's heart is hardened is by God. God hardens his heart 9 times, if I'm right, and the Pharaoh hardens his
Mo,
own
mo,
heart 7 times.
yeah, so he hardens his own heart. I don't know each time, but again,
Yeah.
it's not about changing his mind or making it so he can't make his own decisions. It's about committing him to his own decisions that he's made.
Okay. But that's just one that I just can't wrap my mind around. Because if he can't interfere with us because of his free will, wouldn't him talking to other people in the Bible be like influencing them to do
Yeah,
the decisions?
there's no nothing said that he can't influence you.
But wouldn't that be going against the free will of our choice?
No. How does that go against your free will?
Because let's say I'm walking down the street and I want to go get pizza, and God comes down and tells me to go get a burger, even though I didn't want to get a burger, and I still choose a pizza, even though God told me to get a burger, and the burger shop just blows up or something.
Yeah, you still have free will. You just don't have a burger shop.
Hmm. So, what if it was his plan for me to go to the pizza shop either way? He just knew I would refuse what he would say. Would that still go with his plan or what?
Yeah, you still have free will. It's still you choosing to go where you want to go. Knowledge is not causation. Doesn't matter what changes around you in the world. Like if I throw you in a prison cell, you still have free will, even if you can't leave that prison cell.
Hmm. Okay. That's just all my questions because I just can't wrap my mind around it. And anytime I ask other questions, they just tell me that it's all a part of God's plan and I shouldn't question it. Which is why I left Christianity in the first place because it doesn't. Most of the people that I talked to said not to question
All right,
it.
so then you didn't leave Christianity. You left people. Sounds
Yeah,
like you didn't
basically.
have Christianity.
And they just couldn't provide the answers that
I don't even
I
think you heard what I
wanted.
said.
Yeah, the people. I
Yeah,
left
you left the
the people,
people,
not the
not the
religion.
religion.
And overall, I just don't think that there's enough evidence. It's just the religion part that's, well,
Okay, what
the
would be
real
enough
part.
evidence?
Yep. Basically something happening that I know shouldn't happen. Like if I saw someone get hit by a car and then their arm just miraculously reheals itself, closes itself back up,
So
just
if
something
you
that
saw that
wouldn't
happen
add up.
with no context, no one telling you what it is, you just see someone get hit by a car, and then their arm just miraculously heals, you'd be like, okay, the Christian God is real.
No, I would just think that that there's a God.
So you
In
think
that
that? So
context, it
how
would
would you
be
not know that it came
a
from like
God
some unknown natural event?
because either that person has powers or it has to be some kind of God.
Well, how do you know it has to be from some kind of God? How do you know it's not like a gamma radiation just hit the planet at a certain point from the sun and caused miraculous healing to happen and just in that moment?
Because that would be so unlikely that I would genuinely believe that's less likely than a God.
Okay.
And since it wouldn't be, since the chance of you replicating that would be less than there being an actual God, it wouldn't add up.
Okay. Well, I can't do that for you. So
Yeah, I don't really need like straight up evidence. I need more evidence for a God than against one. And for me right now, there's just not enough.
well, you said there's evidence against. What's the evidence against God?
For me, it's just the lack of evidence.
Well, that's not a given evidence against something.
No, I don't. There's none against him that I can think of. It's just that there's not enough for him.
Right, but the thing is, you're saying you'd have to see some sort of miraculous event happen. So basically, you just need to see God work to be able to believe Him. Now, the reality is,
Yep.
we could have enough evidence because there's a lot of things in your life that you haven't seen firsthand yet. You probably hold to be true. Like you probably hold to evolution.
Yes,
Have you ever
because
seen anything evolve?
yes, we can see that right now.
You've
Considering
personally seen something evolve,
no, well, not personally, not in front of my eyes, because that would go against what evolution would
right?
be in
So
the
then, why
long.
do you believe in evolution?
Because we can see that people are evolving without their wisdom. Well, more people are being born without the wisdom tooth,
Well, that's a
and there's a lot
claim. That's just a claim. How do you know that that's
because
actually a
there's
change that's
evidence
going
for
on?
it.
What evidence?
There's proven evidence for it
Like
that I've seen,
like
but I
what?
just can't remember it off the top of my head. But there being less people being born with it
Like
is
what? What's the
this is what we
evidence?
believe it.
See, what it sounds like to me is that you've just heard some claims from scientists and you're just believing it to be true, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but I'm saying you have a different standard of evidence for naturalistic things than you do for like a supernatural thing. So God, you need to see him work firsthand, but evolution, you don't need to see work firsthand.
Yes, because when you're saying that you have a God that's all knowing, all powerful, and is everywhere at once, I'm going to need a lot more evidence for that over beings evolving.
You're
I
going to need
would
more
need way
evidence than
less
that than
evidence.
somebody telling you that life came from non-life.
Yes, because
But that's a miraculous event in itself. How does life come from non-life? Have you ever seen a life come from a stone?
nope, that's the thing. That's why I would need evidence to believe that.
Right, but that's what
I think
evolution
there's
claims.
evolution.
Evolution claims that life comes from non-life, that we go far enough back that we have a non-life starter that leads to life, and then we have the evolutionary processes that continue up into our point. So
Yes, we
what I'm
can.
saying is you believe this miraculous thing. You believe the universe just came into existence. You believe the universe just started, and then you believe life came from non-life, and
The
that life
universe
changes and
started.
adapts over millions of years. These are all huge claims, but yet you haven't seen it firsthand.
That's the thing. I'm not one of the atheists that believe the universe started. I just believe the universe was always there. Because
Well,
if it wasn't
then you go
always
against
there,
science because science says the universe started.
the universe for the Big Bang Theory says when it started to expand, not when it started.
No, that's when it says it starts.
But we can see the expansion.
Yeah, that's how we know it started because we can see the expansion.
And if we can see the expansion, that doesn't necessarily prove that there wasn't something there from before. It doesn't prove that there was nothing there before.
Mathematically, if everything's expanding, right, going out in a certain direction, if we do the math and reverse it, what happens?
Then it would eventually go back to a singular point.
Right, a singularity.
AKA, there could always have been something there before. And
There was always a singularity. Then how long did it take before the universe came into existence?
well, we don't know that. So
Well, just rough guess. How long would it take? If it was always there, how long did it take for the universe to come into existence? I want you to think about that.
Well, I can't exactly put a time on it since, in the grand scale of the universe, regardless of whatever time that I
Okay.
say,
Well, I want you
I
to
could
think
always
about
be
what I'm
wrong.
saying. You think I'm trying to get like an actual number. I want you to think about the paradox I'm giving you. If it was always there, how long did it take before the universe started to expand?
Well, you would never know.
If it was always there,
Hmm.
there would be an infinite amount of time before the universe started to expand. Yes?
Yes,
Right. So if it's an infinite amount of time, how long did it take before it started?
it would also take an infinite amount of time, but you
Right.
could
So if
also,
it takes an infinite amount of time, why did it start?
it doesn't need a why to start.
Everything needs a why. That's the principle of the principle of sufficient reason.
But that's the thing. If the universe was conscious, I would believe that it has a
I'm not
why.
talking about why. You're not listening to what I'm saying. If the universe took an infinite amount of time to start, there
Hmm.
should be no reason it actually starts because it took an infinite amount of time. If there's an infinite amount of people between me and you, and I pass a note between the person next to me and ask them to pass it down to you, how long until you get the note?
It would also take an infinite amount of time.
So
But
would you ever get the note?
yes, but that's assuming
How
that
would you get the note if it takes an infinite amount of time? Define
because
infinite for me.
if infinite means that it just goes on forever.
Right? So if it goes on forever, it takes an infinite amount of time to get to you. It goes on forever. It never stops. Then it should never get to you.
Yes, but that's the thing. You could also apply that with God. If God is an infinite being,
Right?
how
You're
would
not
you know
answering.
the
You're
universe
dodging my
started?
question. You're just kind of saying it applies
No,
to God. Right?
simply,
We can get
I'll
to
simply
God. We can get to God, but I first want you to address this, and then we'll go to God. Is that fair?
yeah, no problem.
Okay. So if it takes an infinite amount of time to get to you, it should never get to you. Right?
It should never get to me, technically.
Correct. Yeah. So if the universe had an infinite regression going back, how long before the expansion starts?
It will also take an infinite amount of time.
So it should never start, right?
Well, yes, by that logic.
Right. So we have this paradox, we have this contradiction.
But that's the thing. Even with this paradox, like I was saying earlier, with God, you could also apply that with God.
Yeah, you can't because God doesn't exist in time. God exists outside of time.
But that's the thing. Then you would have to prove that.
Well, I'm just showing you issues with your worldview. Remember, you got to remember the conversation that we were having. See, this is the problem when we have these conversations. People forget the context, right? What was the context of this conversation? What started it?
Free will.
That started it, but then what was the context? Why did we get to this point of talking about this infinite regress?
Big Bang Theory.
No, that's
I'm
past
sorry.
the context. The context we were talking about is the evidence you would need, and you said you needed to see it firsthand, and I said there's many things that you believe that you never even seen firsthand,
Hmm.
right? And I'm saying you
Sorry.
have an inconsistent amount of evidence for God than other things. You're holding God to a higher standard of evidence than you do for even these grandiose things that we have in our naturalistic worldviews.
Yes, because that's the thing with God. It would also need to be infinite. So I would
Right?
need a lot more evidence.
You're. I think I'm going to have to move on because I'm getting frustrated at this point because
Yeah, no problem.
the topic again was you need evidence, right? You need the standard of evidence that's higher than anybody else. I'm saying, well, here's all these other great things that you hold to, these miraculous claims, so to speak, that you believe to be true, but you don't have the same standard of evidence for that. I'm trying to point out the hypocrisy that you have.
That the universe came to exist, but I don't need as much evidence with the universe as I do with God.
You don't need as much evidence for anything else than you do with God. I'm saying you have an unfair standard of evidence.
Yes, but the thing that I'm trying to explain is that
Do
I
you
can
agree that you have
believe
an
that a
unfair
God
standard of
existed.
evidence?
Yes, it's supposed to be unfair because
Why is it supposed to be unfair? Why is it that you get to special plead?
simply because of the fact that with stuff that is that I can see, I can eventually
You
trace that
can't
stuff
see
back.
evolution.
but I can track it.
Have you tracked it?
Well, I don't need to personally devote my life to track it because
Right.
we
So
have
again,
people.
you believe things. You're saying with God, this is where you're being horribly inconsistent. You're saying with God, you need to see it firsthand happen right in front of you. But everything else out there, like evolution's a great claim. I'm not saying it's false. I believe in evolution, but I'm saying it's a huge claim. It's a huge claim, right? You believe it, but you haven't tracked it. You haven't seen it firsthand. You haven't looked at the data. I'm saying you're being unfair with your data. You're special pleading.
Yes, but that's the thing for me. I just need a little bit more evidence. It
You don't need a
doesn't
little bit more evidence. You have an unfair standard of evidence. You need all the evidence.
exactly because
Right? That
for
that's
something that
that's
I'm gonna
hypocritical.
spend eternity in, for somewhere that I'm gonna spend the rest of my existence at,
If you're an
I would need
atheist,
a
if
lot
you're an
more.
atheist, you spend the rest of your life in naturalism. Yet you believe
Yeah,
the naturalistic things on less claims. So again, you're showing a hypocritical stance.
no, I'm converting it to your worldview where if I die and I go to a Christian afterlife, I would be spending my eternity in hell.
Right. Are you, if
So
naturalism is true, are you spending your eternity, whatever's left of it, not eternity, but your existence in naturalism?
I believe that when I pass on, everything just goes black. There's no
Right. So
consciousness.
that you're not answering the question. If naturalism is true, do you not spend the rest of your existence in a naturalistic worldview?
Yes, that would be correct.
Right. So then what's the issue? Because you're saying, well, my eternity is going to be spent with God, so I need more evidence. But you believe the naturalistic point of view with less evidence, even though the rest of your existence is in naturalism. So again, you're showing an inconsistency.
For me, that's the thing. For me, I just need evidence on certain things that it's gonna last for a while. I don't need evidence for like who made a donut because that's not gonna last long. But for eternity, that's a
So
different
the
story.
universe existing, if it's naturalistic, will be the longest existing thing in history.
Because it's the universe.
Right. So you need that evidence for that. Like you're being inconsistent for no reason at this point.
The
Like
evidence for the
just
universe.
admit that like you don't want to believe God exists. So therefore you
I
have an
want to
unreasonable
believe
amount of
God.
standard of evidence.
That's the thing. I want God to exist
Well
so
then
that I can know
then
what
don't
to
have an
do.
unreasonable standard of evidence. You have
But
an
I
equal
need
amount of
more
evidence.
evidence.
Like if there's enough evidence to prove these other things that you believe in, then apply that same standard of evidence towards God.
But that's the thing. The only evidence I see for God is the Bible and some miracles that we just can't genuinely prove.
Yeah, again, are you willing to apply the same standard of evidence?
I would be more than
Because
willing
you
to
said you'd have to
apply.
see it all firsthand. Are you changing that viewpoint now?
I'm willing to learn and change my viewpoints to suit what I believe best. So
That's a
if I need to
horrible
get
way
more
to do
evidence,
science.
I just need more evidence for
I've heard
everything.
I've heard that I've heard you say that 17 times now, but you're not really addressing what I'm saying. Are you willing to apply the same standard of evidence towards God that you are for other naturalistic points of view?
Yes, I'm willing to change that part of me.
Okay, so then what standard of evidence would you need to convince you of God's existence?
Something realistic.
Well,
Um,
that's very vague. What does something realistic mean?
One second. I'm thinking to myself to think of something that I would be convinced by. Hmm. Um, Maybe just me praying about something and then that exact thing happening, or something very similar to it happening. But obviously, I'm not gonna pray because I don't believe in it. But since I'm not gonna pray, I just need
Okay,
something that
well,
I'm
with that
thinking
being
about
said, then I
just to
appreciate your time. God bless you. You said here's the standard of evidence I would believe, but I'm not going to apply it. So, if you're not willing to commit the experiments, it's on you. It's not on me.
But I'm not done. I'm saying since I know that I'm not gonna pray, if I can think of something to happen and it does happen, I would be more than willing to believe it at that point. So,
If you think something should happen and it does happen, all right, man. I appreciate your time. God bless you. Have yourself a great day, man.